Well, hi there, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar on queer activism and minority rights in Poland. My name is Cora, pronouns she, her, and I work at the Andersraum. The Andersraum is a small charity organization based in Hanover, Germany, and we run a queer community center, we run a queer youth center, which we're very proud of. We have a health project, and we also organize the local Pride. And tonight's webinar is part of the Pride Cultural Days we host every winter. And yeah, I'm just so excited and so honored to have Meva and Julia with us tonight. Before we start, I'd like to say a few technical or pragmatic remarks. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Micha and Till, our volunteers tonight, for organizing everything concerning technology. So without them, we wouldn't even be able to stream an event. Thanks so much for doing this. And also, I'd like to thank Fiona, who happens to be my partner, taking care of the chat messages tonight. Thanks so much. As is obvious, we're holding this event in English because that's the language the three of us, share. I'm very well aware of the fact that this might exclude some people who don't speak English, but who would maybe be very interested in the event. So if you're watching right now and you're very good at English and Polish or English and German, and you would like to help us with subtitles, that'd be very, very great. The video will stay online afterwards, and if we could have subtitles for people to watch it, that would make it more accessible for even more people. So please get in touch with us if you're interested in helping, and you have the time to help too. That'd be very appreciated. I also want to emphasize that tonight we'll be talking about queer rights in Poland, and as we know, they're not to the best right now, but this is really not about demonizing an entire country or demonizing people who live there, especially not from a German perspective. And also, God knows that Germany still has way to go until we reach gender equality or human rights and liberty for everyone. So what this is an exploration of what things are really like on the ground for people who live there. And it's a mutual learning. And I expect to learn just as much or even more from you than the other way around. As we know, in recent years, especially ever since the Law and Justice Party PiS took power in Poland or was elected, there's been a significant backlash in the terms of LGBT rights and also reproductive rights in Poland. These rights have been called gender ideology that pose a threat to the traditional family. Not sure what that is. Some of you might have heard of it. Anyways, various steps have been taken to undermine the rights of queer minorities and also women. Most infamously, the proclamation of the so-called LGBT-free zones. Despite all this, or maybe even motivated by all this, LGBT and feminist activists have been continuing the fight for human rights. For example, by courageously organizing pride marches all over Poland. And we have two of these very courageous activists with us tonight, and I couldn't be more honored to have you here. Meva Topolska, pronouns they, them, or none, is a member of the Stonewall Group Poznan, but right now focusing on the Frankfurt Słubice Pride, a Polish-German transnational pride that was first held this year in September. So very new and very exciting. We'll hear more from you. You're also a member of several queer artistic collectives and a musician. Welcome, Meva. And we'll also hear from Julia Maciocha, pronouns she, her. Julia is the president of Warsaw Pride, a proud lesbian, and the first woman to be in charge of the Equality Parade Warsaw. Bam, to you. And yeah, welcome to the stream. Thanks for being with us. During the event, everyone who's watching will be able to ask questions via the chat on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. And let me just say that you asking questions and giving comments matters a lot to us, because these digital formats are somewhat clinical, and we're doing this for you. We want your feedback. We want to know what you're thinking about and what matters to you. So we'd really love to read your questions and your comments. And we'll have a conversation between the three of us for maybe 60, 70 minutes. And then at the latest include as many of the questions as possible. Well, I'd like to structure our conversation in 3 parts, and in the first part talk about the current situation of queer people and women in Poland, socially, legally, and also politically. And in the second part, talk about the day-to-day business of activism and how that works and goes about right now. And then in the third part, we'll be talking about demands. Right, so let's jump right in. I saw a recent EU poll suggesting that 49% of the Polish general public are in favor of equal rights for LGBT IQ. Just to compare, in Germany it's 88%, so 49, that's, I mean, it's almost half, but it could be more, I guess. Maybe I'll just start with this innocently seeming question. What's it like being queer in Poland these days? Meva, could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
First of all, that depends a lot on where you live, on who you are, how well you can pass as cis or straight, or what is your surroundings, what do you do in life. I mean, of course, as everywhere, you know, but the difference is huge between small towns and big cities, especially between villages and big cities. Or it's also very general, you know. I think it's like this everywhere. But the typically Polish thing is that the East is more conservative than the West, and also you can see it on the map of the LGBTQ free zones, because most of them are in the east of Poland and the south of Poland. In the big cities, it's kind of manageable, especially in Poznań and Warsaw. Those are like, Poznań is considered the gay capital of Poland. People say so. It's very. I mean, it is as queer friendly as it gets in Poland. You know, it's all. It all depends on lots of factors, but it is manageable. Like, we are alive, and I don't try to pass as cis or straight or anything. People don't want to believe me, I guess. People prefer not to think about it, and lots of people are in favor of not coming out, or just staying quiet. I don't think it's that different than in other countries. I mean, the arguments of the people who are against equality or queer people are similar everywhere, but the problem is that those claims are supported by the ruling party, which use minorities to reach their goals. And queer people are not the first victim of this kind of politics game. 5 years ago, it was immigrants. One of the very moving moments I went through this year was when there were 2 protests in Poznań in two different places. One of them was against the Lukashenko's politics in Belarus, and the other one was against the words of President Duda, who called us an ideology, or I'm not actually sure if it was against this thing, because we were protesting so many things this year. I'm not even sure if it was that kind of protest, but like we were both groups who were victims of the ruling party, and after that we went to one point, we met there, and it was very uniting, very moving in that way. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add. I'm lost.
Can you say how common are violence or attacks on queer people in Poland?
I think I can say that most of my friends have been attacked at least once in their lives, on various grounds. It could be because they looked too queer, or because of their hair color, or because someone just because of a gossip. It's quite common, I guess. It's a normal thing that people will get attacked on this ground, but on the other hand, lots of people don't believe us because there's no laws that protect us from that. There's no such thing as hate speech. I mean, there is hate speech, but the laws don't protect us from the hate speech, and people see the laws against hate speech as a huge attack on their freedom of speech, so they won't let it get through. And of course you could get charged for beating someone up, but there's no such thing as a violent act, an attack on the against the queer. I lost the word, because you can attack someone on an ethnic ground, or something, but there's no such thing for queer people. There's nothing protecting us from that. And also, most of the if we go to the police with that, most of them would just tell us to wait, or just leave us hanging, or just forget the whole thing. Most of people just don't seek help.
Julia, did you want to add or build on that?
Of course, there is this big difference in your expression between cities and villages, but also in terms of talking about violent attacks. They are mostly based in these big cities because they are mostly aiming LGBTQ clubs or special events like our marches, or I don't know, even film screenings, you know. So you might think that, you know, people in big cities, since they are having like better life, or maybe they are more courage sometimes, they would report that something happened to them based on homophobia. But it's not happening. Less than 4% of LGBTQ people who was attacked was actually reporting it at the police. And also we have to add to that half of them weren't reported as hate crime, like as a crime out of hate to LGBTQ people. And, you know, even before Law and Justice came to power, the trust to the police was pretty low. More than 60% of LGBTQ people were not trusting the police. And I guess right now it's like 100% because of what is happening for the last 2 years, but especially for the last few months, how police is stopped being like a tool of protecting citizens, and it became a tool of our government to push people to their homes and to actually stop legal protests. So I don't have the current statistics about the trust to the police in terms of LGBTQ people, but 33% of general population in Poland don't trust the police. Mm-hmm. So even if you are having even if you got attacked, and even if you are having the courage to report it, you still have nowhere to go.
Okay, I guess we'll come back to that point also when we'll be talking about activism and your demands. But I'd like to stay with the legal and political status of queer people and also women for a sec. You already mentioned that there are no laws of protection, no laws to protect you from hate crime. Could you also talk about other aspects of the legal status or political status of queer people, maybe regarding all those like very bourgeois things like marriage, but also trans rights, also reproductive rights, if you can.
I guess that marriage is not even a topic right now. So in terms of legal situation, it's hard to talk about it because there is only one place that in our law that we are actually existing as an LGBTQ people, and it's the labor law, and it was forced on us by European Union. So in terms of anything else, of course, sometimes things are not legal, but sometimes things are legal on paper. What I mean by that is, for example, accessibility to the medical information on your partner. Basically, you can just write in your chart at the hospital that you would like to give your information to this person, and you don't have to even say who this person is to you. But what is happening more and more often is that doctors and nurses are trying to somehow make it difficult for you to give an information to people that are not your official family, especially if we are having an accident. And there was no time to make this special card for special people. So on this is really, really hard. And this is something that usually homophobes are using against us. And they are saying, oh, in our constitution, there is a writing that everyone is equal. Great, but there are no tools that are making us equal. Of course, we are not having equal partnerships, not even to talk about marriages. There is a huge backlash right now against adoption for LGBTQ people, which is super hard, especially for rainbow families. We have approximately 150,000 Polish children living already in same-sex couples, with the same-sex couples, let's say, if we cannot call them marriage. And this is also making it difficult whenever something is happening to the partner, one of the partner. And most of people right now that I know that have kids, they actually went to Germany to legalize their relationship there, because in Germany they are, both of them are parents. So this whole social situation is really hard because we are not existing, and whenever we are trying to call people out on it, they are saying, we're equal, you can do whatever you want, you can go to court or something like this. But half of the people have no money to go to court. Especially right now during the pandemic, LGBTQ people, trans people were groups that were the most vulnerable of losing their jobs because they were having a jobs at clubs, or they were having non-official jobs because it was hard for them to obtain an official normal job. And then we are having this whole marriage thing. And of course, it would be really great. And it's really important that our society is already there, because more than half of our society want same-sex couple to have equal partnerships, more than 30% equal marriage. So we are almost there, even with the referendum that we don't want, because we don't think that the majority should have a right to vote on the rights of minority. But even with that, we would win, So why we are not there yet? And the answer is pretty simple. Because of our government, and not only the current government, it's really easy to say, oh, you know, right now this right-wing government is so bad. But before them, there were centrists, and they also did nothing. They also freeze some of the most important legal papers that we wanted to pass. And in that, there is trans people case, which is outrageous, because in Poland, if you would like to change your name legally, you have to sue your own parents. You have to go to court, you have to stand against your parents and say that they assigned you a wrong gender, which is untrue, of course. Your parents are not doing it, doctors are doing it. But first of all, it's pretty expensive. You know, with the documentary, that it's pretty extensive. You have to pay for the doctors. Of course, you have to do it privately because it's not funded by our system. And then, you know, you are putting your family, which is sometimes already in a pretty vulnerable situation because you came out to them and they are maybe not that open and that happy about it. You're putting them in this difficult situation where they have to go to court. And options are two. They can either support you, and it's pretty great. It's pretty great because it might take a few months and you will be done with that. But also, they can be against you. And these cases might take some years. So to have your parents, even if you are adult, decide on what you can or cannot do with your life is the craziest thing that is happening here right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, thanks for elaborating on that. It's super dense. And
I wanted to comment on when you mentioned that the ruling party, the current ruling party, is not like the first party who brought the problems on us. I wanted to kind of connect it all to the whole black strike shebang that's happening right now. What I mean is that there was women uprising, like we would say so, because of the abortion laws that were over flooded by the people who were trying to take the whole credit, the whole feminist background, and convert it into we want to overthrow the government kind of message. And like there were, in the beginning, there were many feminist chants, and people were actually fighting for a feminist cause that it was there about in the first place. But very soon, as soon as the protests got bigger and bigger, lots of the people joining them were only screaming the most popular chant. I don't know if I should call it a chant. Yeah, they were all just screaming "fuck the peace party" and nothing else. And my main thought was like, what are you going to do after you overthrow this government? Do you expect that the next people that will come will be better and they will fix everything that they did? Like, they are there because someone chose them, and those people are still around, and it's way more deeply rooted, and it's not just about putting a few people of their place up their high. It's about much deeper issues, and it was very visible that most of the people here don't look below the surface, and it's very scary to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that just brings us directly to the second section, talking about activism. And Meva, maybe you can continue explaining how are you organizing protests these days? Like, how do you form coalitions, and what forms or kinds of protests do you find helpful and successful?
Okay, like is it about is it also about the Frankfurt Subice Pride or
Sure, that'd be one example.
okay, that's one of the, like this is quite a standard example, maybe outside of the fact that it was our first project and it was all organized fully in the pandemic situation. It's interesting because it's hard to work over the border when the situation is so different. It's okay because we can use the German openness to help us reach our goals because those people are much more open to maybe talk about the issues, but they still know that it's not their country, and while they are striving for like I don't know if I'm correct on this, but I heard that one of their claims was that the parents the same-sex couples who want to adopt a child don't have to go through this special psychological tests or something, and they are there, and we here we can't even get our marriages formalized, and even talking about adoption is scary to people. I remember that when we were writing the document with our claims for before the Pride, we wanted to give it to the officials. I was the one who asked the people not to put not to put the adoption issue so straightforward in the document, because I could see in my head I could see all of the hate comments that they want to take our children, that they don't even understand that we are from here. I remember that when I was giving one of the first interviews about the Pride, one of the questions was that why was this place chosen to do the Pride March, as if we were sent from from Brussels, or I don't know. Like, it was so absurd to me. We need to be careful with our words, but on the other hand, it doesn't really matter because they will find something on us anyway. That's why. It's also this contrast that people from Germany still want us to be calm, and also people in Poland who are more privileged also want us to be calm, while being calm didn't give us anything for the last few decades. It's just as it was. You can there are TV programs from the 90s where a lesbian was very calmly telling the people why homosexual people are fine, and it was very calm and very gentle and very nice and stuff. We've been doing it for a long time, and people are still telling us that any more radical action will give us the opposite result. But where do we have to go from there? What do you propose? I mean, I think that it's not that we must go burn the parliament or something right now, maybe later. But I mean, the peaceful actions are important too, of course, because they are moving the Overton window. We are moving the Overton window, and then the people making peaceful actions can benefit from that because their actions are seen as the normal ones, more normal ones, But most of the people don't understand that. And that's why, for example, here in Subice, we decided to make our own group, aside of the Pride group. We are still working on it. It's not yet done, but we noticed that we can't really of course we can use the help of the people from the German side, but as much as they want to help us, they will never be in our situations. For them, the thing happening at our side is still absurd and quite arbitrary. They can hear our stories and stuff, but it's still exotic for them. They mostly they can't really imagine that it's actually happening right over there, like a 10-minute walk from their home, probably.
What do you need German partners to do?
People from the German side are not really taking actions. They are not. It's hard for them to like say anything to the Polish governments, like the Polish side of things. They could maybe make a declaration, and we're actually working on it. We've done the documents and all of the stuff. We're trying to make them pass the declaration of we call it LGBT-friendly zones, but it's a declaration of equality or something like this. It was based on the declaration from Zielona Góra, for example. We are trying to make it happen, but it's just symbolic for now. But one of our plans is that I know it's going to be hard, but for example, when the organizers of the Black protests from Subice reached out to the abortion clinics in Frankfurt, lots of them wanted to help Polish women and other people with uteruses to get abortions on the German side. And we are thinking of helping people transition this way. It won't be easy, because I know that in Germany it's still not that easy for trans people, but it might be easier than here.
Okay, I see. I'm sure we'll come back to that too. And now I'd like to turn from the rather small town of Słubice to the nation's capital, Warsaw, where the protests might take on a different format, because I think you already explained to me when we talked for the first time that you do equality marches that have a much broader spectrum than what's commonly referred to as pride marches. So could you just talk a little bit about that?
I mean, we would do it otherwise, but we were actually quite lucky to have a founder, Szymon Niemiec, who made the first parade 20 years ago. And already back then, people, this small group of activists, because the first equality parade was, consisting 100 people maybe. Already these people recognize that we cannot fight this fight alone, and we have to look for allies. And the best allies are other minority groups that are also experiencing the same discrimination, because what we fight is the same oppressor. Either we are calling it the government or the society or the patriarchy, it doesn't matter, because all of this whole system is not benefiting none of us. So years after years after years, we are gaining more and more coalitions. And right now, we can proudly say that we have 12 demands, which are also consisting rights for people with disabilities and their families, women's rights, so-called women's rights, rights for maybe not the rights for, but just the accessibility of Poland for minorities, for people coming abroad, for refugees. And also, of course, some of the demands are containing marriage, partnerships, and easier transition process for trans people. But it was never that easy, When I was becoming the president 4 years ago, I wanted to welcome people with disabilities, so I wrote to some of their NGOs, and the answers were pretty awful. I'm not going to share the details, but it was not very nice to read that. But we didn't give up. And next year after that, there was a huge protest of people with disabilities and their families that were occupying our parliament. So we wrote a letter of support and we said, we are on your side. We were bringing them food and supplies that they needed to the parliament because they couldn't get out. And next year after that, they joined us within the parade.
Wow.
So this process that is happening right now in Poland, of course, I'm talking about it from this really weird perspective of Warsaw, but most of us are helping each other with different marches. So the similar groups are now organizing protests about abortion. We are co-organizing or supporting women's rights marches, equality parades, earth strikes. So anything else that we actually can attend, we are attending. And I think this is the huge strength in Poland, because Pride is about celebration, and right now there is nothing to celebrate in Poland. But at least we can have equality parade, equality march, and spend the time together, have this sense of community, and to feel that you are not walking alone. This is something super important for the last few weeks. And there is this slogan we have that when our country is not protecting us, we have to protect our sisters. And this is something that is really powerful, because I remember feminist protests 7 years ago, and I moved to Warsaw, and you were going to this protest to say hi to your friends, because there were so little people that you could actually meet everyone. And right now, I'm very happy that I can find my friends within the crowd, because it really shows that our society is also moving forward. We are also learning to use our civil rights.
Mm-hmm. And can you say who's protesting there? From the pictures, I often get the impression it's mostly young people, but I'm not sure if that's true. So are all people of all ages, people of all classes and educational backgrounds protesting there, or is there a difference?
If you look at the statistics, of course, more women are pro-equality than men. Of course, young people are more open than old people, but it's not that easy. Especially in Warsaw, of course, we are having more and more young people because they are growing with the internet, which is quite helpful sometimes, especially if you are queer or you just don't know if you are falling into this heteronormative Polish traditional values. But we also have to think about the time. We are having our march in June. It's a pretty hot season already. Sometimes it's really hard for older people to participate because it's still a march in a pretty heat weather. But we are having some groups of seniors, LGBTQ seniors, but also straight cis seniors that are participating. They call themselves dancing pokoleniowe, which is they are organizing dances with people of all ages to move the participation of seniors, to show that seniors still want to have an extended life, want to participate with the society, which is great. And sometimes you can see this like super old grandmas waving the flags or giving flowers to people, and you just simply want to cry.
Wow.
Also, as I said, a lot of people with disabilities are joining us. We also get our work done to make it possible for them to participate, to have a place on the platforms. But again, it's easy to say from the perspective of a huge city that has actually a lot of money for this party. It's still hard for smaller places, especially cities that are having their first or second march, to collect the money and then, to make sure that everyone is included. Even if they are sitting, in this huge table and they're talking about it, it's still hard to include everyone in a small society. And this is pretty important because in 2017, we had only 7 equality marches in Poland, and now we have more than 30.
Wow.
So the rise is huge. For the last 2 years, a lot of small communities decided to show themselves. Even when they are not ready to make march, they are trying to organize different events, different things. So I feel like the age gap is going to it's going to get smaller within years. But right now, of course, most of people that you can see, they are young people. But we have to remind ourselves that we had, and we still have, some of them are still active. We had a pretty great activist 20, 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. They started it. Some of them are still within this activism. So it's not only that young people are active, and not only young people are organizing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, that's so touching to hear that protests are on the rise and they have history too. I was going to ask, because you already talked about role models, kind of people who came before you. I was going to ask about the importance of role models, and maybe Meba, you want to talk about this a little bit. I saw that on German media, for some reason, one person who always gets reported on is Anja Rubik, who seems to be advocating reproductive rights. So I was going to ask you, how important are these role models? Do they help your cause, or do they then draw too much attention to themselves? What do you think? Or maybe also explain who Anja Rubik is, because people might not know her.
Anja Rubik is a supermodel, a very popular one. She's pretty and she has done a lot. I mean, I can't deny that she's done a lot. She, like, for example, she made that book, Sex at PL, which is like, which was kind of a, I don't know how to call it. Maybe Julia will help me. Like, it's a handbook about sex education. There are talks with different people and very cool pictures. It's a very transparent way of saying stuff.
It's and Instagram friendly.
What?
It's Instagram friendly.
Yes, very Instagram friendly, and like it was very fun for me to read it because actually I got it from my friend who had a drag performance using that book, and like they left it at my place afterwards, and I realized that I know a lot of people from those pictures because they are actually from the community, and it's very cool. But Anya has been critiqued for the last for her last actions. Maybe I haven't looked into that much. I didn't have time to do this, but I know that there's this big problem in Poland that people who are actually more privileged don't know when to step back, but it's like universal kind of thing. To me, my role models are just people from the Instagram, I think. When it comes to activism, like, Instagram is my place for activism, I guess. I mean, there are lots of people who are just sharing their stories, and to me it's very important. And like, I see lots of people calling out each other, and it's also very cool. But not everyone can take a call out. But I'm actually happy about that culture of calling out each other. But it doesn't really reach those people who, like Anja Rubik, for example, who are very high up there, and they don't really look into that. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with this. Role models. I wasn't prepared for that question. But like,
But you
I see that
answered it.
lots of people who actually, yeah, I'm not that big in the media, but even I receive messages like, I really like the things you post, and I learn a lot from it, and or like some people tell me that because I'm speaking out about things, I help them realize who they are, and I think it's like every one of us making a little story like this. I think most of people who speak out about queerness have made a few people realized who they are and made their life better in some way. Uh, I think I like to believe it. But it's very important on this like very low to earth level to like just try to maintain the community and the web like around you, and this like little kind of your camera kind of I'm losing my language. The people who are up there and have lots of subscribers and lots of people follow them, it's easy for them to lose track of what's actually happening. And for example, like lately we had this huge shitstorm on the Polish Instagram about one person who had a body positive account, and this person turned out to be a TERF, and of course people called her out, and she didn't take it in. But that didn't really hurt her that much because she still has lots of followers. So like this whole thing about uplifting each other or teaching each other, I think it works the best on this low level when you are not that popular yet, when people actually care about the stuff other people say about them. In this word, I think it actually is important. I mean, it's hard not to lose track of what's happening, but it is important to listen to other people's stories because there's so little of us. Like everyone knows each other. Everyone like if there's someone who educates people on the internet, most of the people kind of know who they are. There's not that much of us.
Well, to me, your role models, definitely, that's for sure. And I'm being asked what your Instagram names are. Would you be willing? Someone asked on YouTube what your Instagram name is. Would it be okay to share it?
I guess, yeah. If someone got to this point of the video, I think it's all right for them to know my Instagram as well.
Okay, we'll make sure to post it into the comment box later. I think I'm not even following you right now. I definitely need to change it. I didn't know your Instagram name. Okay, glad someone asked, so I didn't have to. Well, let's go back to like deep politics maybe. You already talked about the political system of Poland and a certain disenchantment you have with it. Still, I was wondering, and maybe Julia, you could talk about that a little bit. Is it at all an option for you to, at some point, run for office, like join a party and try to create change through the political system?
Of course, there is an option, and this is actually something that is happening right now. We have a gay representative within European Parliament, and two bisexual people within the national parliament. So it's not like LGBTQ people are not existing within this system. And actually, we had one of the first transgender politician in 2006, I believe, Anna Grodzka. made a huge step for LGBTQ community and entered the national parliament. But the problem right now is that most of the parties, of course, are not even considering thinking about LGBTQ rights, putting LGBTQ rights into their program, because I can't even imagine how this is happening. But our politicians are living in some kind of different world where half of our society is not wanting the equal partnerships, for example, or that LGBTQ people are not existing, or that within some of their minds, LGBTQ people are happy in Poland. So this is also a pretty big problem, that, you know, there is a huge change on the youth level and young people want something better. But within political party, you can usually see older people that are not following this trend. So there is only one party that I could join, because all of the others are not considering my existence or are hating me for my existing. So it's not that easy. It's definitely not an option for me. I'm not sure about you, Meva. Would you like to run for office?
I don't trust politics at all. I mean, I feel like if I'm going into the NGO area, I think I'm going to stay there, because I have no reason to trust the politics. It's not that I'm not interested in it, because it's hard not to be interested in politics right now if you care about yourself, I guess. I mean, politics in Poland, someone has said that not being interested in politics is a luxury right now in Poland, because it's so intrusive to our like everyday lives that you have to know at least something about it. But it's scary for me. I mean, I've been going to protests here in Subice, and I've seen people recruiting for Lewica party, and someone I was there with went there and actually talked to them, and I'm scared, because we've seen people who were saying that they are all for our rights, and in the crucial moment they would like just snap and leave and pretend like nothing happened. So it's scary to me. I don't think I would be good at it. I think I'm just where I am right now. I mean, I still like there was a lot that changed around me lately, because actually something I've been doing has started to make some sense, because like I did something to some degree. I like something happened from what I've been trying to do here, and I actually feel better about the place I'm living in. But like the existence of queer people is too radical for lots of people here. Like just the so thing that we when there were women's strikes here in Subice, the people organizing them said that mentioning that not only women can have abortions was too radical, and when we bring in queer people to the protests, we are actually dividing everyone. And I felt like I should just leave that place, and I don't think I ever came back to those protests here in Subice. I mean, there were not many, because I think they stopped doing them. We just focused on our little actions, because like just people who live here nearby and who I'm close with in the opinion wise, I guess, got kind of insulted, because like you won't include queer people even though they've been with you from the beginning, but you won't include them because it's so radical, because you're scared about your own reputation, I guess. And like, why would I stay here? You know? And it's like this in many places, unfortunately. People say that there is no place for pride flags, for rainbow flags at the women's strikes, that it's that like as if queer people don't have uteruses. And Oh, I'm getting to a weird place right now. I'm getting frustrated. I shouldn't go there.
But this is also making this difficult situation for us, where only leftist parties are considered or associated with LGBTQ rights, and this is something that actually happened in Ireland, and maybe it would help here in Poland if we would find somehow a chance to convince conservatives that LGBTQ rights are the family rights and make this whole story about family, not about us being some deviation or some weird people that want to kidnap kids, which is pretty hard, because what is happening right now in Poland is the opposite of it. We are having more and more far-right parties that are saying that LGBTQ people should not exist and they should be killed or kicked out of the country. And they are getting the votes. They have actually right now 7% in our parliament, which is pretty disturbing. And I guess that this is also connected to the second case that we should, I'm feeling like we should cover it. So the role of church within the whole situation that is happening right now in Poland. In some of the countries that are already far in front of us with their fight for equality, they were saying, oh, but the church was pretty powerful there also. Yes, but it was kind of different church. We have to remember that in Poland, our church thinks of themselves as the last castle in Europe stopping this rainbow flag, and they are the last soldiers on this fight against us, and everyone else gave up, but the Polish church is staying strong, which is ridiculous, but they are actually believing that. So we have to remember that, first of all, Polish church is sponsoring many of anti-LGBTQ actions. Many of the priests are every Sunday talking bad things about LGBTQ people within the churches. So even young people are hearing about it, are hearing these things, and they can easily follow into this direction. But also they are supporting the ruling party, and they are strongly connected with them through the money. So I don't want to say that, because I don't believe that it's entirely true. But we have to remember that a hate against LGBTQ people is money for our party, ruling party right now, for our government. And we have to remember that if it will be, bad for them from the like a money perspective, they will stop hating. They will stop this whole thing against LGBTQ people, because it will make no sense. Because overall, they are about the power and the money. And the power is just right now obtained by having this enemy. And there were refugees 2 years ago, then LGBTQ people. Right now, I guess it's also women, So it's pretty hard. Because it's half of our society. But I feel like they are ready for it. They are ready for this crusade against half of the society.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe to give you some hope of that, I found a poll saying that 50% of Polish Catholics are increasingly critical of the structures within church. That, of course, doesn't mean that they're going to show up with the rainbow flag next weekend at one of your protests. But
the percentage of Catholics in Poland is very high, because most of them are just they're just how do you say it? Jakiś chrzest.
Baptized.
They are just baptized as kids, and it's very hard to leave church, and you need to take extra effort to leave church. So like people who are critical of the structure, they haven't probably been going to church for lots of years now, and it's just like the percentage of Catholics in Poland is very high, and I think that percentage of Catholics, I mean the people who are a part of Catholic Church in some way, having an opinion on something could be similar to the whole Polish demographic. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it could be just...
Also, the problem is that being critical about the structure is pretty important. But what we would like to see is taking the actions. If you are calling yourself a Catholic, why are you not doing anything about the hate that is spread? Why are you not doing anything about the sins of our church? Because you can call it that way. Mm-hmm. And again, if you are calling yourself pro-life, why are you not fighting for all of the lives? And the case is that having an opinion is pretty great, and it's pretty great that in European Parliament we had some touching speeches for the last few weeks, pretty handful of them. Mm-hmm. But what I would also remind is that a person in European Parliament that is the loudest about LGBTQ thing in Poland is Terry Reintke. It's your European MMP. So this is also the problem, that we need actions, not the words. And we need more politicians like Terry. We also need more people like Terry that would not only say, oh, I'm very sorry about the situation that you have. I'm like crying the river right now. I'm sending my love. I'm sending my prayers. I will send you the cake. It's not the case. It's not the case. What we need right now is actions, and what we need right now is what you might have called a radical action, but I don't really think that they are radical.
Right. I mean, we're already in the third bit of our discussion, so I'd like to encourage people to ask questions. We really appreciate your comments and questions. A few already have popped in, so I'll ask one or two final questions to you and then include the questions from the chat. You already mentioned the EU, and I read that the EU's Equality Commissioner, Helena Dalli, has said that she wants to cut funding for twinning programs, so city partnerships for Polish towns that issued LGBT-free zones. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that? Like, do you think it's the right way to cut funding? And also, how should twin cities, how should partner cities react? I mean, also on the German side, for instance, German partner cities.
Sorry, I'm making the notes also. Sure. So we have two parts of this problem, and I'm not going to give you a perfect answer because this is not something I can do. So on one hand, I really strongly believe that our government only understands the money argument. So the cut of funding should be, the most effective way, actually, to convince them that they are losing with this war against us, then they are not profiting enough to cover it. But then we have to be careful about the funding that we are cutting, what these fundings were supposed to do. Because if these fundings, for example, were for international cooperation and for the exchange of students between schools, then we are losing. Then we are losing the case, because these exchange programs were one of the programs that students were learning about the diversity, could go to Germany or any other country and see that the country, a country that is, having in consideration the minority rights, is actually still standing. Everything is fine, like no one is dying. There is not like a huge crater with lava. Everything is like on point. So it's always the question of from whom we are taking the money. Because if we are taking the money from the most vulnerable people, then we are doing it wrong, because it's not affecting the government. Government doesn't feel that. But I have a strong opinion about what twin cities should do. They should ask questions. They should ask questions. And they don't have to do anything radical. Even I'm actually against dropping the partnerships or cutting the partnerships off, because this is the easy way. Like, okay, let's leave this Poland right there, and the rest of the European Union would go forward, and then they can stay there, which is actually not true, because the rise of right-wing populism is super strong in Poland, but it's not only happening in Poland, it's also happening in all over Europe, all over the world. So if we want to stop this wave, we can't do it only in our perfect places and then hope for the best. We have to stop it together. But with this asking questions like, okay, so why do you feel that you had to make this LGBT-free zone, for example? Do you really feel that LGBTQ people are a threat to you? Can you give an examples of how LGBTQ people were threatening you? Did they, I don't know, burn something, or did they destroy something? And after that, okay, so maybe can we propose a training, an equality training, diversity training? Maybe we can visit you and make action together, make some educational brochures. Maybe we can talk in schools with kids, with young people. And then, the best thing about asking questions is that these people don't know what they are talking about. There was an interview with in one of the LGBT free zones, and the journalist was asking what the LGBTQ stands for. And people couldn't even, explain what is, like, the T was a transvestite and gay, lesbian, and after that...
Bio
queen, or I don't know.
Yo.
So, oh no, there was a drag queen also. And the journalist was asking, where's the D in this, in this shortcut? So when they have to explain themselves, sometimes, of course, if they have enough of courage, they can feel that, okay, maybe it was a mistake. And there were some of LGBTQ reasons that went back, that say, okay, it was a mistake, we're canceling it. There were also 5 places that the court overruled this LGBT zone. So if we are not asking questions, and if we are not trying to get into this black hole, then we are not going to take people out of there. So this is what Meva said a few minutes ago, that Germany can't do anything, actually, German people, but you can ask questions. And this is what actually some of your MPs are doing, some of your NGOs are doing. And, even if they are not going to change their minds, at least they are going to lose some time to answer you, and then they are not going to follow us within this time, Mm-hmm. So it's also a pretty great time to get a rest sometimes.
The partnership is actually a very important issue here, because the place where I'm working with my activism is very strongly rooted in the cross-border partnership between cities. Like Słubice wouldn't exist without Frankfurt, probably, and everyone here bears in mind that if German people wouldn't be interested in shopping here, and this city would die. That's why when they closed the borders in the beginning of the pandemic, there were protests here about it. And actually here we are using this tactic a lot to work on our claims, because we can, the German people can back us up, and the people from the German side are very supportive. So we know that they probably will raise our issue on the political meetings of some sort. And also I know that in this place, actually, those little gestures, like a place declaring itself LGBT friendly, like a bar or a shop, it would actually mean a lot. I know that if there's a place that declares itself like unfriendly, I know that there are people from the German side who have the money who would stop going there, because it's like so interconnected. And this is like actually Subice is not an LGBT-free zone. It would be very difficult to make it here, but also it makes people very symmetrist and central leaning. Everyone feels like it's not important enough to talk about that. Oh, it's okay. You can always go to Germany. Like it's fine, but in Germany, there's also no infrastructure for us. There are no places we can go to who are openly queer friendly, for example. I mean, maybe now it's beginning to change, but there's still a lot of work, and we are often silenced because, oh, it's such a nice place. Berlin is so near, you know. Just go there, you know. Just why are you bothering me? I'm just living here peacefully in my Subice land, fantasy land, I guess. But here it actually could work. All of those like little things, they make a difference here. It was actually possible for us to make this Pride March this year. It was like there were not many Pride marches this year in Poland because of the whole situation, but we managed to do it because the German people would help us. We would not gather the money we gathered in Poland. Mm-hmm. In Germany, I don't think we had any money from the Polish side, but we managed to pull it off, and we had T-shirts, we had a graphic designer do all the stuff for us, we had a concert, and the musicians were paid. And we could even help people get here. Like it's not often here in Poland. Like people don't really earn money from activism. Like when me and my band me and my band were playing a concert on our Pride, and when I realized that I would get paid for that, I was shocked, you know, because like, yeah, we're making a Pride concert. We're just like, it was so weird for me. Like in Poland, getting money for activism is very rare, and especially in little cities. You mostly just collect money for the most important expenses, and you wouldn't even get most of the money in the first place.
It's a great bridge to some of the questions we got, because one person did actually ask how are the Pride organizations in Poland financing themselves. We heard a little bit about Słubice right now. Julia, could you maybe explain how Warsaw Pride finances itself?
NGOs in Poland, they are not financing themselves, they are struggling to survive, and this is pretty important to mention. So in Warsaw Pride, we are making the biggest LGBTQ event in Poland. Last year, we had 80,000 people attending, and there is not a single person in our team that is being paid. So the whole event is voluntary based. We are getting money. It's a lot of money. We can't, you know, say that we are poor. From corporations, in let's say half of the money are from corporations. 30% of our budget is from the community, but we are trying to make it smaller because our community is, of course, not in a very great situation due to the pandemic, but also it's pretty easy for us to find money from different sources for an event where someone can advertise themselves. And it's super hard to find money, for example, for psychological help or legal help. So what we would like to change is to switch this community money to these places that are not sexy enough to get money from different sources. And 20% of money are either people that are doing something for free or diplomats, so the diplomatic embassies that are also supporting us. So this is more or less the budget. But the case with money is also pretty important because more and more people are asking me, oh, but you are not afraid that if we are going to give you money, so the government would say, oh, but you're financed by the West. And our government is already saying that. And whenever someone is asking me or saying, oh, but you're financed by the West, I'm saying, yes, of course, because our government is not giving us money. So where should I get this money from? So, of course, Norwegian funds are an option also. We got also some funds a few years ago from Germany. But the money in Warsaw is not an issue because, as I said, we had these huge corporations. We are also a pretty big event. We are well covered by media, so it's an advertisement place. But within the smaller cities, and this is completely crazy sometimes, but they can do a march for free. So they can somehow find a truck or a car. They can find a sound system for free. Some of the local places are printing things for free, or they are giving the T-shirts. Some of the people would say, okay, I will give flags, or I will give you, I don't know, a permission to use the room that I have and that you can gather in. So when sometimes someone is asking me how these marches are made, I have to say, I don't know. Like, on this logical point of view, this shouldn't have happened. And then yet you're going to this small city and it's happening, and it's actually pretty great. So this is a big problem also for the super small or new cities, because they are not there, they do not have like the legal, they are not an organization yet, they're just informal groups. So sometimes also people do not believe them, or they don't want to give money to informal groups, or it's hard, you know, with the taxes. So
yeah, I remember, like, I just wanted to interrupt a little bit. Like, when we were doing the march, we were advertising just that it's organized by a group of about 20 independent people, and the people, like, people in the comments were going crazy. Like, who are those people? Where are they from? Who are they? Like, give us the names. Like, why? My mom was freaking out. Like, do they want the names to get to our houses and beat us up, or what why do they need our names for? It's so scary, honestly. I'm sorry, you can continue.
Yeah, but like this is what is happening. Like people, of course, the right-wing people want to know, but also people that are just looking for a drama. They want to know about you, about the organization. So what we are thinking about is how can we help these groups, these small groups, to get money, because of course, even if they are not getting paid, they have to pay some of the invoices, and like you have to pay the bills. But also to give them like this legal protection that they maybe do not have yet.
I see. Thank you. I'd like to include a few more questions from the chat. And thanks to everyone for asking questions. So coming back to the role of the church, someone asked, are there Christian queer groups you know of in Poland? Meva, do you want to?
I know of a group called Wiara I Tęcza, which means faith and rainbow, but I don't know much about it. I only know that it exists and that they give out some brochures. Also, there's this Reformed Catholic Church, which was delegalized lately. It was legal. It was illegal. That it was legal for a few years, and now it's not legal again. And they are very pro-queer, and they are actually, for example, in Poznan, making ecumenic. Is it in English? Ecumenic,
A gathering.
Yeah, religious gatherings before the Pride March for like any Christian people who want to attend, and they are very like active in this sort of way. Also, but like, it's very sad that people in Poland, like the church in Poland, feels like they can exclude queer people from the church. They also always say that if you put a rainbow on a holy picture, that it's abomination of some sort. That it's how do you say it? insulting to God to put a rainbow somewhere, which is stupid. It really is stupid. I mean, I am a Christian. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not a Catholic, but I am a Christian, and I I don't feel like God doesn't like me. I don't feel like God doesn't like my rainbow. It looks pretty, you know. But I mean, it's of course I'm kind of joking, but it actually is scary how far it goes in terms of like people feeling like rainbow is an insult to something, because it is not, and it's been proven by the court that it's not an insult. But still, people get threatened for this kind of stuff. Like the woman, I'm not sure. Like it was the woman who made the Rainbow Mother Mary of Częstochowa. I think the police went to her place at night and threatened her, or even like arrested her or something. Yeah, it was. It's absurd. Honestly, it is absurd. Like for a picture.
Okay.
So the group is called Faith in the Rainbow in English, and they are working. They are working in whole Poland. So they have the local groups that are gathering together. So I guess there is a possibility to actually attend some of their gatherings, and yeah, they are also a part of Equality Parade every year.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's also encouraging to hear that it's not all of the church, but yeah, people can have
also. It's not about the church, but the Jewish community is also attending some of our marches. So also from a perspective of more than one religion. And last year we had this multi-religion panel on LGBTQ rights, and most of the people that we asked to show up, they showed up. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for adding that. That means a lot to me to hear that. I'd like to include another question on a field we only very briefly touched on, really, the field of schools and education. I mean, we mentioned sex ed, but now someone asks, is there any form of queer education for young people in schools or otherwise? No.
From 2 years, I believe now, the queer organizations are not able to enter schools. So we can't even have like extra classes. So which is very, very sad, because what this situation is making is that young people are looking for info within the internet. A Polish side of internet is not very inclusive for LGBTQ people, of course. So I guess that LGBTQ people, especially young people, are pretty well in English, you know, because otherwise you just can't have a community or some of the info, especially trans people. This is something that we are really not doing great in Poland yet. But Stonewall actually started the like a YouTube channel with sex ed films. They are, of course, also touching the queer stuff. So maybe Meva would like to extend on that.
I don't know if it's like a yeah, they have a YouTube channel and they make films about sex ed. I mean, I didn't watch all of them, but I remember like from the behind the scenes things, people are so fixated on anal. It's scary. I mean, they see a gay person and they think anal. That's the first association. When the guy who was actually supposed to be here today, I don't know what happened. Mateusz he was staring in a video about how to prepare for anal. Basically everyone in the internet kept messaging him about like, oh, you washed your butt already, or shut up and go teach people how to wash their butts, or like there was so fixated. It was scary. I mean, people can't. They are. It's so funny to watch adult people being so fixated on such simple things. They can't talk about it without making fun of it, and it is funny. But there were also death threats there. Honestly, it can be funny if we look at it this way, but people are actually getting threatened for their lives, and it is not unpopular. It's not like incidental. People actually get threatened for making sex ed videos, and actually they are not vulgar or anything. They're just there, and they're very educational.
But in terms of school, I think what is also really important that we are not having a psychological help for young people. Yes. Right now it's getting better because for the last 2 years I'm saying as the community, some of huge grants that are making it available to have 2 phones. So the numbers that young people can call when they are in a danger situation or they are just curious about things and they want to ask. So, but still 70% of LGBTQ youth in Poland are having suicidal thoughts. Almost 50% are somehow on the depression spectrum. So either it's mild or severe. And if we are comparing it into the general Polish society, it's only 5%. So the difference is huge. And of course, I'm blaming teachers and schools. In my school, I didn't experience violence, but it was not also very welcoming. And I was in the best school in the city, so I'm pretty sure that it was even harder for kids that were going to schools with maybe less educated people or people coming from less privileged backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dear watchers, last chance to ask questions. I have 2 more questions popping up right now. One person asks, is there a website or a newsletter which is updating about the situation in the cities? I was trying to get information about our partner city and could not find information to this topic in English. So are there any resources in English maybe you could recommend?
So we have this Atlas of Hate. You can Google Atlas of Hate, and there is a map with the cities that are already LGBTQ-free zone or are considering to become one, or are already declared that they are not going to become one. But it is possible that if there is like no point on the map, there is no color on the map in point of this city that you are looking for, maybe they are just not even talking about this topic. But you can easily contact with the people from the Atlas of Hate. This is a great group of people that are doing an amazing job with the research, and they can actually update you if they know about any talks or declarations. Maybe this right-wing organization that is called Ordo Iuris, and it's the worst thing that is happening here in Poland, have been in this city. So I guess that they will be the best source of info right now.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much. Meva, anything you'd like to add?
I think on this particular topic, that would be the best, yes.
Okay, cool. One last but very important question. How can someone in Germany support you? Donate money, share news from special organizations? What can they do? Your wish list.
So what we are working on right now within some of the marching organization is to prepare one website that you can easily follow all of the marches and to see what march maybe is the closest to your heart somehow. I don't know why. Maybe it's in the city that is a partner city of your city. And we think about something like this happening also with the news that you can share. And I strongly believe that at the beginning of February, we are going to have that. Right now, we are pretty, it's pretty hard to follow all of the organizations that are in Poland because there is more than 30 of them. But, except for money, because of course it's pretty great to get euros because it's, with the currency change is pretty much money here in Poland. What is helping me sometimes is just to hear from activists, from people abroad and saying, hey, thank you for this work. Thank you that you are still fighting. And I also got a person that wrote to me and say, hi, we don't know each other. I'm just here working for lesbian organizations. And if you ever need a couch, just call me and you can stay at my place and escape from this Polish reality. Which is, it just pretty simple. It's not costing you anything except for time to write to this organization and say, great job, people. I love to watch your post, even though I'm using Google Translate to translate them. I'm like truly your fan, and I will be supporting you still.
Mm-hmm. Neva, anything you'd like to add?
I could maybe say follow smaller activists. Because they actually can appreciate every little drop of, I know a good little their order. I mean, I'm just speaking from a perspective of a young person who is mostly active online, especially right now. And there are people who, I mean, if you follow me, I mostly share other people's work because lots of people, I mostly do my kind of stuff. I don't really write infographics and stuff, but I can recommend, for example, Magdo from Berlin, who is a Polish person from Berlin, and they are writing posts in English about the situation in Poland pretty frequently. And yeah, if you get into this, like, people share each other. As I said, there's not many of us. Some of us write in English, some of us just share each other, and it's not about me, it's just that there are some people who are, for example, just trans people telling their stories, or just people who organize a particular event, and also there are those little things that come up on the way, like for example, people who are gathering money for transitioning, or people who get thrown out of their houses and they need money to just live. And we often share each other's sites where we raise money for those people, and also organizations supporting organizations that help people from Poland get abortions. Also, it's good to support them right now. There are a few of those, and maybe just particular organizations, maybe the bigger ones. It's pretty easy to raise money for Stonewall Group or Parada Równości, I think, if you choose so. It's okay. There are also shops with Pride gadgets. You could order something for yourself if you want it. There are also queer artists who do their own handmade things. You can sometimes buy them there as well. I mean, I'm only giving, I'm freeballing ideas because there's so much of it that you could just encounter something on the way. I think following little small activists is good too.
There is also a website that is called Notes from Poland. It's a website that is covering what is happening in Poland, basically. And sometimes knowledge is the best that you can do. You can just, sit with your friend and say, it's pretty disturbing what is happening in Poland, huh? And then they will say, I don't know about that. And you could say, oh, just watch these two girls talking here and you will get to know more about the Polish situation. Because right now, the only thing that we can do is to push from abroad, to push politically also. to our government, and to use the European Union not only to, shared trades and get a free online shopping, but we can also like change some of the lives of people, of citizens here in European Union, which is still impossible that we are actually still in European Union. So if you are hearing us, if you are reading about what is happening in Poland, then you can also ask your politicians, then you can ask your local organizations to, to ask questions. Again, we're coming back, we're making a circle to ask questions, because it's not like German people, or even the whole European Union can change Poland. You can't invite us and just say, okay, either you are giving the gay rights or I don't know. But it would be pretty funny. But you can ask questions, and the questions are making this atmosphere of people wanting something else. And maybe, just maybe, I'm pretty pessimistic about it, but maybe our politicians will finally see that we are in the 21st century, and half of our society wants equal rights, not only for LGBTQ people, but for women, but for minority groups, but also for refugees. Because young people, especially here in Poland, they want to live in a different country, and somehow we have to make it for them.
Mm-hmm. And since I'm optimistic by nature, I'm sure we will at some point. So dear watchers, you heard it, like educating yourself about the situation in Poland matters a lot. Every euro you donate to a solidarity fund or an organization will make a difference. And every single like on an Instagram page, every encouraging and positive comment does make a huge difference for activists, because it is, and I'll include myself into that, it is what keeps us going. The positive feedback among the other feedback we also get. So if you liked our video tonight, please consider also sharing the video to your friends. So they can also learn about what's going on. I want to express my deep gratitude and thanks for your contributions, for your activism, and also for taking the time answering all these questions tonight. And for watchers, as we know, political activism can be very tiring, but we got you covered. Next weekend, we have a self-care workshop for activists. On Saturday, there's still
Is it in English?
It will be in German, unfortunately. Yeah. So there's still time to learn German and sign up.
Try to learn German in a week just to go there.
Okay, maybe we should offer something in English too. There's still time to sign up for a workshop, and please also check out the other events that are part of the Pride Cultural Days we have in winter. And I'd like to once again say thank you to Meva and Julia. You two are amazing. And I wish everyone a very nice evening and good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.